You are now unmuted.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Day 10 of the Engineering Conclave 2025, hosted by the SCETW ACMW Student Chapter. We are excited to bring you an insightful session today that focuses on shaping global research journey. The talk promises practical wisdom, inspiration, and actionable guidance for young engineers and researchers. Our speaker for the session is Dr. John Batani. Dr. Batani is an active researcher in applied machine learning, information systems, and health informatics. He holds a PhD in Information Systems and Technology from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, and is currently part of the Computer Science Department at Botho University, where he also serves as a university's research team leader. He is actively involved in initiatives strengthening machine learning across Africa and Lesotho, including deep learning in DabaX and Zindi Africa, with numerous publications across journals, book chapters, books, and conferences. His contributions span applied ML, health informatics, and child online safety. Please join me in welcoming Dr. John Batani for his talk on building an international research profile, do's and don'ts. So, over to you.
You are now muted.
Uh, Good evening. I'm not sure if it's evening or afternoon that side. Can you hear me?
You are now unmuted.
Hello? All right. Can you also
You are now
see
muted.
me?
You are now unmuted.
Okay. All right. Thank
You are
you
now
very much
muted.
for the opportunity to talk to your students. I've already been introduced, so I'll just go on and share my presentation. Let me see how I will. Can I still share when there is something showing on this
You are
screen? I
now
think someone is
unmuted.
sharing something, or am I not expected to share my presentation? Okay.
You are now muted.
All right. So let me do that. Just.
You are now unmuted. You are now
Okay.
muted. You are now
So
unmuted.
let me, I
You are
think you
now
can now
muted.
see my presentation.
You are now unmuted.
Okay, so my
You are now
presentation is
muted.
titled Building an International Research Profile, focusing on the do's and don'ts. It's not really long, but yes, so that's what I'm going to present on. Okay, so to start with, because we are talking of research, I just thought maybe let's look at perhaps one of the possible definitions of what research is. So when we talk of research, we are basically talking of a systematic process, and it's important to take note that this is systematic. It's not haphazard. It's not something that we do in a disorderly manner. So it's systematic, it's scientific, and this process involves collecting data. It involves conducting an analysis of the collected data, as well as interpreting that data to answer whatever research question you could be focusing on that would have motivated you to conduct that research. Or in some instances, it may not be about answering a question, but solving a problem. So to conduct research, we need to do it in a conscious manner, premeditated. We need to have a plan of what we intend to do. And I also would want to indicate that it's done, it's a human activity. At the moment, AI has not reached that stage where it can conduct research on its own until maybe we get to strong AI. But currently, in the weak AI phase, we don't have robots that are able to conduct research throughout on their own, in as much as we may use them as tools at certain phases of your research. So the idea of conducting research, there are many reasons we do conduct research. but some of those do include knowledge creation, also discovering, interpreting, or even revising human knowledge. There are certain things we could have believed to be true for quite a long time, but as we conduct research, we may get new insights and then we revise what we actually used to know to be true. It's also important that we use appropriate methods or appropriate processes, which is one of the things we do look at when we are evaluating your findings, to say, are the conclusions you have made, are they acceptable? Do they make sense? We also look at the process you followed to come to that conclusion. And basically, through research, we accumulate scientific knowledge, which means that when you're conducting research, it's also important to get to know what others have done in the past so that you don't necessarily repeat what has already been done, but we build on what has been done by the others. And in the process, we'll be accumulating scientific knowledge. Then, with that definition in mind, I think let's now look at what we could possibly refer to as an international research profile. So in this case, we are looking at you as a researcher being someone who has a coherent body of scholarly work. And that work should demonstrate consistency in terms of the contributions of your study and I mean, the contributions of your research. And also, you are not just focusing on disseminating your findings at a local scale or within your country only, but you are also disseminating those studies beyond your national context. You are also disseminating your findings at a global scale, at a global level, and also even in professional communities that span beyond your locality. So in so doing, you'll actually be involved in publishing internationally, presenting globally, and networking with people who are outside of your area of, I mean, like outside of your locality, as well as working on projects with other people who possibly come from outside where you stay. Okay, so why is it important to build an international research profile? There are a number of reasons we may want to build an international research profile. One, as a researcher, you would also want to extend your visibility. You would want to expand your visibility such that your work gets to be known beyond where you stay or beyond your country. So that's one of the reasons. It also helps you create global reputation. Like people will get to know you. Yeah, the more you become visible, the more people get to know you, and the more people get to know you, the more it also presents you with opportunities to collaborate with people outside of your institution, outside of your country, outside of your region, and as you are also involved in research, you would want people to get to know what your work is about, what you are working on and stuff. And the more you become visible, the more likely the impact of your research gets to be known. Like the more people get to know your research, you increase the impact of your research and also increase possibly the citations that you could get from your work. And of course, this also comes with a possibility of you getting more funding opportunities for further research, among other reasons. And then in terms of, with that background, I think, let me now look at some of what I would call the do's before we look at the don'ts. So in terms of the do's, it's important that you don't just publish like anyhow. It's important to publish strategically. So in that case, I mean, it's important that you focus on not just the quantity of your publications, but also the quality of what you are putting out there. Because some people may not know you, but they will read what you have written. And then they will use that as well to come up with certain perceptions towards you, to try and come up with a certain picture of what you could be like and stuff. So if, for instance, you approach me and you would want us to work together, the first thing I would do, because I don't know you, is also to take a look at what you have published in the past. And if that work is of poor quality, that can also impact on potential publications with the others. Even if it comes to employment, the same applies even to getting funding opportunities. People would also want to see whether the quality of work you do publish also meets their expectations. And yeah, I'm not sure why my graphics are cutting there. But again, the other thing is it's important that you target reputable journals. I'm not sure if you can see the entire graphic there, but from my end, I can see that there's something not showing. But it's important to target reputable journals. I always tell people that publishing I'll explain this again when we get to predatory journals. But I always tell people that publishing your article in a predatory journal, it's more like studying with an unregistered institution. In as much as you could be a brilliant student, you spend whatever number of years there, but when you start looking for a job, people will just say you studied at an unregistered institution, so whatever certificate you are going to produce is void. We can't accept it. It's the same thing with that. It does not always mean that every piece of work published in predatory journals is not good enough, but because of the outlet that you did publish it in, it makes it difficult to convince people that the work is also of good quality. So it's important that when you are publishing, focus on quality. Even if you get so many rejections or so many revisions, to say keep revising the work, don't then opt for a journal that will give you feedback in 2 days and say your paper has been accepted. It's also, as you also focus on strategic publishing, you would also want to consider not just publishing in local outlets, but to also publish in outlets that have an international readership. Because remember, we are focusing on building an international research profile. So if you only publish locally, there's nothing wrong with publishing locally, but I'm saying you don't have to always publish locally because the audience will always remain local. So it's also important to consider journals that are international, that will allow you to get known at a global level as well, which will help you establish that international research profile. And then, can you confirm if you can still hear me, just to check?
You are now unmuted.
Can you still? Okay, all right, thank you.
You are now muted.
Then another thing is it's also important to collaborate internationally. And I know for students, you may think like the point on co-supervision may not really apply to you, but for junior researchers, if you are involved in research, even if you are a student, it depends on whether you are an undergraduate student or a postgraduate student. But if you are a postgraduate student who has some exposure to research, you could also look for students who are below your level, whom you could co-supervise with someone who's experienced in research. And that allows you to also collaborate at an international level. The other thing also is whether you are a student or not, but as long as you are interested in publishing, you could also collaborate with other researchers who are from outside your country. So you can have joint publications, you publish with others, and you can also work on international projects so that you collaborate with people who are outside of your country and have a global, like people get to know you at a global stage. Then it's also important to leverage research platforms. Many times you see people who have published something, but then their work, you can't see it online. And it's difficult now for people to get to know about what you are doing. So there are a number of research platforms that are available online, which I would encourage you to create profiles on, including Google Scholar, OCID, ResearchGate, among others. And while these platforms do update they have an option for updating your research output automatically if you do set them to that. It's also important just to check, say your paper has been published, you could check after some days to see if it has been updated on your profile. So it's important to keep your profile always up to date so that we enhance that visibility that I mentioned earlier on. And okay, if you do have an opportunity to attend conferences, international conferences, that's also another good thing to do as you try build your international research profile. That helps you to network with people who are outside your region, people who come from anywhere across the world, which also helps enhance your visibility. And you could also join professional societies for people to get to know about you, what your research interests are, what you are currently working on, what you are good at, among other things. And okay, it's also important to apply for international grants. Getting local grants is good, but also getting international grants, it helps you build that strong profile such that, like say, if you were to get one grant and then the next time you're applying for another international grant and you show that you have experience of applying for international grants, we have once won such a grant, it also gives you an edge. And even when you try to work with others on a similar project or even on some international funding opportunity, it gives you an edge to do that as well. So I would advise you to apply for international grants. But my advice also would be, sometimes when you are less known, you can't just try to apply for international grants on your own. So it's also important to collaborate with others, even when applying for these grants. Look for people who have won those grants in the past and see if you can collaborate with them. Doesn't matter if you are not the lead researcher in that particular project, but the more you get involved, the more you gain the experience and the more people get to know about you, and you keep increasing your visibility, your popularity within that particular research area as well. And okay, if you could mentor, if you could supervise people, also try to do that internationally for you to build your international research profile. So look for opportunities to mentor students or other junior researchers who could be beyond your country, as well as students whom you could possibly supervise who are outside of your country. Sometimes with you having created a profile, you submit it to an institution and you could even offer to supervise their students, even if it's for free, because what you just want is for people to get to know you. You know that even in marketing, they do it. Sometimes you get a new car, you test drive it without even paying anything, just for you to get to experience how the car is like, what features it does offer and all. So if you are also someone who's not known, but I really know that you have skills that you can showcase, at the beginning, you could start by saying, I can do this for free, until people get to learn about you, the type of skills you do have, the kind of quality that you do produce and stuff. And it will be them now next time even offering to say, can we give you something? Or even if you then decide not to continue doing it for free, they could even come back and say, can we negotiate? Because we have also shown what you can do at an international level or at an international stage. Okay. I think my network is a bit slow. Okay. Now, there are other things, like there are things you don't have to do, or which, let's just say, don'ts. So there are also things you don't have to do. And mostly you realize that my explanation of the things that you don't have to do will focus on mostly to do with ethical issues. So the first thing, I have talked about predatory journals earlier on. So I also have it here to say, let's chase quantity, not necessarily quality. You would rather have one journal article, one quality journal article, or one quality publication published by a renowned outlet than have 5 journals in 1 month that have been published by a predatory journal. For avoid predatory outlets, it could be journals, it could be conferences. So always make sure that you are publishing in well-known outlets. Also, you need to resist salami slicing as one of the unethical practices, which people often do in an attempt to increase the quantity of their publications. So what I mean by this is, or what it basically means is that there are instances where someone can really tell that the data that I've collected or the paper that I want to write here, the results that I do have, can be presented in one paper. But then they decide to say, okay, let me not present this in one paper. And then they just take a little bit of that and put it in a paper, and so that they have as many possible papers as possible from the same set of data. That's also considered unethical. If you can present the entire findings in one paper, then just do it and have a holistic view presented in that particular paper. So in that way, we'll be increasing the quality of your paper rather than just chasing the quantity of your publications. Okay. Then it's also important not to work in isolation. Wherever possible, try to collaborate with others. Working in isolation, it limits your exposure, it limits you from getting other opportunities as well. So try as much as possible to work with others. There is an African adage that says, I think it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together or go with others. So working with others makes you even be able to sustain the research output that you may want to produce. You are not overwhelming yourself. And as you collaborate with others who may be even coming from different contexts, that way you are enhancing your profile as well. People get to know about you even if they are not within the country you come from. So it's important to work with others. Don't work in isolation. Then don't ignore research ethics. This is very important. There are so many things covered under research ethics, and I'm going to talk about a few of them. So plagiarism, this is one of the things you must avoid at whatever cost. So don't be engaged in plagiarism. Don't fabricate. Sometimes people write, or maybe they begin a study with a certain result in mind, but then it doesn't come out to be like that. And then instead of presenting whatever they got as is, then they start like fabricating, creating, changing certain things to suit a certain narrative and all. That is also unethical. Actually, my argument is, if you get results that are contrary to what is known out there, as long as the process you followed in conducting that study is above board, it means whatever results you got, it's also new knowledge. So as long as you can justify why you did things the way you did them, that should not be an issue at all. You can even have that published. Remember, at the beginning, I said we also use research to revise knowledge. So if the process is unquestionable, is the process followed was above board, then even if the results do not conform to what people would have expected, that should not be an issue. It's still a contribution to the board of knowledge. And then the other thing there is, in terms of research ethics, again, there are issues to do with authorship disputes, who qualifies to be an author, whose name should come first, and or I know sometimes as academics, sometimes you do supervise students, and then the student does the work, but when you're publishing, like the student has literally done everything. All you have done maybe is to just make a few comments, but you still want to be the lead author in that. That could also be considered unethical, because you didn't really do much of the work in that particular instance. And you not paying attention to research ethics can easily break a reputation that you would have built over so many years. Research ethics can also lead to retraction of papers, which is something you would never want to happen to you. Like, you get your paper published, and then at some point the paper is retracted. Unfortunately, when a paper is retracted, it doesn't get deleted. It remains there, and you may have so many questions to answer now in the future. Say maybe you're applying for a grant, the funder looks for your profile, and then they see that you have a retracted paper. And you have lots of explanations to make, to say what led to this, and I think that makes it complicated. The other thing that I also see in terms of research ethics is, especially for students who could be working, like you are a master's student, for instance, and you are working elsewhere. You have maybe you are a database administrator there, or you have access to a Kanban's data, and you would want to use the Kanban's data without getting proper clearance. That is also unethical, which we would call, it's basically data leakage. So that's another thing to avoid, because you wouldn't want the company writing to the journal that published your article to say, we have queries regarding this paper, among other ethical issues. So never ignore ethics as you try to build your international research profile. It's also important not to neglect soft skills. Remember, I said one of the important things you need to do as you build an international research profile is to collaborate, is to network. And to do that, sometimes I even said you can attend international conferences. So if you attend a conference, but you don't even want to talk to anyone, you just go there, you go to your hotel, you go there, you present, you go back to your hotel. It means you won't benefit from that. You won't even identify people with similar research interests as yours. So that would lead to poor networking, and it becomes difficult for you also to get that opportunity to network with people from other countries. Yes, you must also not underestimate visibility. There are tools that I mentioned earlier on, like research platforms. So it's always important to make use of those tools. Have a global presence. Have a presence on those tools, like it could be LinkedIn, it could be Twitter. Like, you can have your paper published and you think this paper is of interest. You could even share it depending on the license. If you are allowed to share, suppose maybe people can easily get the paper for free, for instance. You could even share the entire paper if the platform allows you to, or you could just share the link, and then you include those hashtags and stuff. It makes your work visible, and people can get to know about you. There are times when you receive emails from people whom you have never met, and they will be saying, I saw your work on this platform, and we are also considering working on something similar. Could you be on our team, and things like that? So never underestimate visibility. And I also mentioned that always create profiles on research platforms, on digital research platforms. And like, if you look at a platform like ResearchGate, it also has a newer functionality where you can spotlight your work. Like, you can just write something about your paper, and then it increases the visibility of your work as well. So it's recommended to take advantage of such functionalities. So as we build the international research profile, it's important that we start local. So build a local profile. There is no substitute to that. Let's start local. Build your local profile, and then that's when people get to see what we have done. And then you can now join international networks, which means you are now enhancing your visibility. You are now creating your international research profile. And then you can target selective journals as you do that. And then you can now engage in funding calls and also be involved in mentoring others globally, not just within your country. So, from what I've said, I think a few takeaways that we could get. The first one is it's important to publish in quality outlets. And then it's also important to collaborate widely, be visible online, avoid unethical practices. I think I should have put that in bold. And then build consistently. Don't try to do like you look at someone's profile and then you think, this one is so good, the profile is so strong. And then you also want to achieve that in 6 months or in 1 year. I want to have like 20 publications in a year. But in the process, you are doing it by publishing in outlets that are not of that good quality. So that's something that we also need to avoid. I remember I said building your profile takes long, but destroying it doesn't take as long as it will take to build the profile. So in short, I think that's what I wanted to talk to you about, but I can accept any questions that you may have. I can take any questions. Thank you.
You are now unmuted.
Okay. Let me answer this question.
You are now muted.
Based on the presentation, and also maybe I should also indicate that I'm an editor of one of these other journals. So there are journals that say you must not use AI at all. And in that case, using AI would constitute an unethical practice. And then there are other journals that may allow you to use AI partly, but then they will say you need to be transparent and indicate what you use the AI for. Others say you could use AI not for content generation, but just for editing, like could be language editing and stuff like that. So my answer to that is, if you are saying AI is a tool, then you cannot have a tool that does everything that you do. The moment a tool can do everything that you can do, then there is a problem. So my advice is, if say maybe for instance you would want to use AI to help you analyze some data, or something that you may perhaps not be able to do, and in some instances people could even get statisticians to do that for them. If that's what you want to use it for, and then you are being transparent with it that this is what I used it for, then that is okay from my viewpoint. But if you are using AI to generate the content and write the paper for you, then there is a problem, and that's unethical. Unfortunately, there are also tools that can be used to detect such kind of malpractice. And if it gets detected that that's what you did, it leads to paper retraction. And as I explained, I also said that having your paper retracted, it's one of the things you wouldn't want to do. You would rather not publish the paper at all than have it published and then it gets retracted. So just be an ethical person and do what needs to be done. Follow what the guidelines of the journal are. If it's your university and your university says you are not supposed to use AI for this, then don't use it for that. If they give you certain things that they say, if they allow you to use AI for certain things, then you can use AI for that within the limits of what's allowed. But also it's important to be transparent and indicate what you used AI for. At the same time, these AI models, they also do hallucinate. And it's important that even if you use an AI tool, you should be able to tell you should be able to check the quality of the output it has produced, because at the end of the day, the work is yours. So I'm not sure if the question is answered, or if there is a follow-up question. I'm glad to take any
You are
follow-up
now
questions if
unmuted.
they are there. Okay, how do you apply
now muted.
for international grants, and what mistakes should you avoid? So there are a number of things you need to avoid. The first thing that I would advise that you avoid, or maybe let me start with how do you apply for international grants. The first thing is you need to look out for calls. There are a number of funding organizations that do put out calls. Some have calls that continuously run. Like for instance, I think is it Welcome, the one in the UK. They have grants that are usually like continuously running, though they have certain time intervals that they do give feedback to people. So basically, you can look for research grants, for calls for research proposals online, or you could even look for people who are doing this within your institution and get to talk to them. That's part of mentorship. Like I've seen that you keep winning grants, but how do you go about it? Can you take me through that process? And I also say that you need to build a profile before you can apply for an international grant alone. So the best thing is identify people with related research interests to yours, talk to them, have them include you on their application. And when you get included, don't just be there for the sake of having your name appearing. Be involved in the process. Offer to do certain things. Even if there is still time, ask them to say, okay, so what needs to be done here? They tell you that needs to be done. This is what needs to be done. And then you can say, okay, can I take this part and go do it? Go do it, even if you mess up, you come back and say, this is what I've done, and then they guide you, as long as there's still time for you to submit. But if there is no time, then they may not want to have that kind of experimentation. And then what you need to avoid, one thing is pay attention to the eligibility criteria. They always put eligibility criteria, and if you don't meet at least one of them, I think there's no point in you trying to apply for that grant. What you also can do is there are some funders who provide contact people, like they have people who take up the admin role, and they can allow you to send questions to them. So you can also say you have an idea that you would want to that you would want to get funding for. You can say, can I submit to you maybe this 1 page or 2 pages that just explain the concept that I would want to research on, or that I'm looking funding for, and get to hear if they're available for that. Or you could even ask them to say, can you share with me anonymized proposals that you've won grants in the past, just for me to take a look at and also get to learn something from there? Some also do allow you to do that, and they can give you examples and say, these are typical proposals that scored highly. The other thing is also you need to make sure that you have the right people on your team with the right skills. And if there is a budget limit, sometimes people have a tendency of saying, they are saying they can give a grant of up to $1 million. You know that your project needs like $600 for you to complete it, but you still want to inflate the budget and still request that 1 million. That's something that you also need to avoid, because when your proposal is being evaluated, they could also look at that. And some of the people involved in evaluating those proposals are experts in those areas, and they could tell that, no, this is inflated. The other thing that you need to avoid also is some proposals get evaluated by people who may not be from the same background as you. So don't assume that people understand the technical language you are using. In fact, where possible, try to avoid technical language when you are writing your proposal for a research grant. Because if someone is assigned to review your paper or your proposal and they don't understand what you are saying, and yet they are supposed to score you, what they will basically do is give you a lower mark and you lose as a result. So try not to be unnecessarily technical, using technical language that yet you could explain it in a more understandable way. Yeah, I think those are some of the tips that I would want to give you. Now, some funders also have moved on to it. Like some do have two stages. You don't just get to be given a grant based on what you have written. There will be two phases. They review your proposal, and if they are happy with it, then they take you to the next stage where you then have to do an interview. So it's also important to prepare for that interview and make sure that you can present your idea in the shortest possible amount of time, because they might say, we are giving you 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, you need to explain everything that is important for them to be able to judge whether your idea is feasible or not. Thank you. Any
You are now
other
unmuted.
questions? Okay.
You are now
That's,
muted.
that's an interesting question. I remember my PhD supervisor once advised me to say, you need to dig a trench. And what he basically meant by that is, instead of being someone who's known for too many things, at least be known for something that you are really good in. Like if people say, we are looking for an expert in this, they have to think about you and no one else. So they always say, a jack of all trades, master of none. So my advice would be focus on a particular area, be an expert in that particular area, such that even if you were to apply for grants and say, I'm an expert in this, people would really say, this person is an expert in this. And your area is not like you just write anything that you could possibly write about. So that would be my advice. You could start broadly, of course, but I think eventually you need to find a niche and focus on that, and make sure that you are one of the authorities in that particular area. Like if people think about that, like someone could even say, you cannot write any paper without having a citation from this person because you have become an authority in that area.
You are now unmuted.
Yeah, that would be my answer.
You are now muted.
Okay, so what I meant is you need to update it frequently for as long as there is something that has changed. Remember, here we are talking about the research profile, and what we are having on that platform is your research output. So every time you have new output, you have a new research output. We need that reflecting. I mean, we need that to reflect on your profile. So, like I said, when you go to these digital platforms, these research platforms, they do have an option of enabling automatic updates. So that's what my advice would be. Always enable automatic updates on those platforms. But in case you get a publication and it takes long to be indexed on that particular platform, then you could also do it manually. They do provide an opportunity for you to do that manually. So how frequently should it be done? As frequently as you get new research output. That's what would be my response to that.
You are now unmuted. You are now muted.
My experience, okay, perhaps we should have made this one the focus of this presentation, because I think I have so many things to say. But anyway, let me try to summarize it. I published my first paper, I think it was in 2015. And when I published my first paper, unfortunately, I did not get proper guidance. I published it in a predatory outlet. I didn't even know that there was something called a predatory journal then. I submitted a paper. In less than a week, I got feedback. I think it was like 5 days I got feedback, and I was told my paper had been accepted. and I had to pay $150 for it to be published. I was so happy, and I even wondered, so if publishing a paper is this easy, why do people struggle to publish papers? Why is it that the vice chancellors are always complaining that people are not publishing and stuff like that? So out of excitement, I was like, so I now have a paper. I submitted another paper to that journal again. And like previously, they didn't take long. They responded, and then I had the paper published as well. I didn't know anything about that. So that has been my experience. Fortunately, after some 4 years or so, I then enrolled for a PhD. And where I did my PhD, the country itself, like the Department of Higher Education and Training, they are very strict about publishing in authentic outlets, genuine outlets and all. So they've created a list of journals and conferences that they say these ones are legit, they follow quality processes and stuff. So that's when now I started to question myself, like, okay, what does this imply? This means there are other journals that are not okay. And then, yes, I got to understand attending workshops and all. Then I got to start learning about predatory journals and stuff and all and all. And then I tried submitting a paper to one of the journals that were approved. And I saw that I think it took me over a year for them to give me the feedback. And then I was like, okay, so now there's a difference here. I was used to getting my response in a week, but now it's taking a year, or in some instances, like 6 months, 8 months, a year, or even over a year and stuff like that. So what I then started doing was looking at the papers that had been published there, because I submitted, got rejected. Like sometimes the papers would get rejected, a desk rejection. Like the editor just looks at the paper and immediately they say, reject. So I started like looking at how I could possibly refine my skills and have my paper accepted in those journals. So what I did was I went to their published papers, downloaded some of the papers, recent papers there, read them, and got to learn that, okay, so there's a difference here between the way I've been writing and the way the accepted papers have been written. So as I kept reading those papers, I discovered that there was a certain trend that was coming out of all those papers. And this taught me, like, what are the expectations for a paper to be published in these kind of journals. So that is also important, that you read papers from the journals that you are targeting to get to see what is the writing style, how do they structure their papers, and how everything else should be done. And it's also important to read the journal guidelines, because if you don't follow their guidelines, they can also easily reject your paper. So I started doing that, and then I was like, okay, so this is how it works. Started trying it, and fortunately, I've had a friend of mine whom we have worked together since 2014, and we started doing that, like learning how to do it and stuff, and then we published, and we kept on publishing until even some of the journals started realizing the kind of work we were doing, and they would approach us to say, can you be a reviewer? And then you'd be like, okay, so that means they are now sort of impressed with the kind of work that I'm doing. They would also want me to review other people's work, which is something that they wouldn't do in the past, until we even went on to be invited to be editors for some of these journals and stuff. So what I would want to say is, building a research profile is not something that you can do overnight, but you just need to be consistent and keep on doing what needs to be done. Over time, you will see that you actually be perfect, and we always keep on learning. And what I would also want to say is, getting your paper rejected should not demoralize you. Papers get rejected because sometimes, as a reviewer, the reviewer may have a different viewpoint from yours. So if you can submit your paper, as long as you get comments when your paper is rejected, that should not demoralize you. Study the comments carefully, see what needs to be improved, improve on the paper, submit it elsewhere. But a paper can get rejected. Even a professor's paper can get rejected. So that should not discourage you. Keep trying, keep improving on your skills, keep working. Eventually, you will have something to tell people. So my papers that I initially published in predatory journals, I actually used them to teach my students. And when I'm teaching them research, I retrieve those papers. Like I have them on my laptop and I say, we are going to use these papers for the purpose of learning. After I have explained to you how you have to conduct research and stuff. Now let's look at these papers and let's critique them. Let's see what could have been done better and all. And I'm happy that students can identify that, okay, based on what you have taught us, this was not done right, this was not done right and all. And then I'll be like, yes, you also need to know that when you see people with profiles that you could possibly admire, they started from somewhere. So you also can start from somewhere and keep on improving and even be better than some people whose profiles you are currently admiring. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that's what I would say, perhaps in short, as my research experience. Otherwise, I may have so many things to say.
You are now unmuted.
Okay, all right.
You are now muted.
I'm mostly into applied AI, and I mostly apply it to healthcare. So yeah, so let me say health informatics, applied machine learning. Yes.
You are now unmuted.
Okay, so that's it from the audience side. I have two questions for you from my side. One practical advice you would give to your young researchers who are just starting out in the research field, and what in the next decade, how do you see AI transforming the research field?
Okay. One practical advice
You are now
I would
muted.
say you need to have someone, like when you think of pursuing a career in research or maybe, yeah, being a researcher, I think it's important to have someone whom you could identify and say, perhaps this person could be like your role model. And you could also study how they got to be to that position. Like, how did they get to be a renowned researcher? And then try to see how you could possibly charter your way to that level as well. But always have someone whom you look up to for motivation. I'm not saying that you have to live someone's life. We are different. Even if you have someone whom you would say is your role model, they have their life, you have your life. The paths that you could eventually take may be different. But if someone who acts as your source of motivation, to keep you like learn from them and also see how you could possibly enhance your skills. But also look for someone who could mentor you. I know people rarely do have time. So if you want someone to give you like much of their time to mentor you, that may be tricky as well. They may not have the time. But how you could also get mentorship from that person is by reading the kind of work that they write. Like they have publications, read their work, get to see how they write and all. Such that even if you now approach them to say, could we work together on this particular idea? Even if you are giving them a concept note, you have written it in a way that resonates with that person, and they can find it easier to work with you than when everything you have written about has nothing to do with the kind of writing that they also show. Even when you are looking for someone to supervise you, for instance, maybe you want to do some postgraduate qualification or an additional qualification and you are looking for a supervisor. If you say that the person has a similar research interest as you, ideally the person should have produced some publications along those lines. So also reading their work and seeing where it could fit, even if it's just one citation, that could also make the person see that, okay, so this person read my work and they are not just coming to me because they are looking for someone randomly to supervise them, but they have seen some synergy between the kind of work I do and what they are proposing to do. How do I see AI transforming research in the next decade or so? I think I'll just say what I think. For as long as we are within the weak AI era, where we don't have AI systems or AI robots that can potentially compete with human beings in almost everything, I think AI will remain a tool that researchers would use to make their research, like make the processes faster and stuff. But you still need to apply your mind to this. You still need to come up with an idea that is attractive to the audience for them to read your work. Because the current AI systems we do have, they basically do not create something new as such. They are basically using the data that has been fed to them to come up with like just jumble up certain things and come up with something that could look potentially new. But when you look at it, like it generates something, you put it on a similarity check software like Turnitin and etc. You may realize that the similarity index could even be high because some of the stuff, it took it from other people's work and stuff. But the moment we have AI tools that can potentially compete with human beings, that are self-aware, that can reason on their own, like that can do almost anything that a human being could do, perhaps at that moment we could start having AI being able to be involved in research independently. But my fear is we might get to a point where we can't even control what the AI has to do. It's like we'll be having people who can, like another set of people who can compete with us, and we can't predict the kind of output that they would generate. But we'll see when we get there. It might not be in the next 10 years, perhaps 30 years or so, but we'll see. So for now, I think in the next 10 years, perhaps AI would just keep refining what people could do as a tool, not necessarily as a replacement of researchers. As long as we don't stop thinking, I think we still have something to offer. But we can use AI to reduce the time it takes for us to produce the product that we intend to produce.
You are now unmuted.
I'm not sure if you have a follow-up question.
Thank you so much for answering the question, sir. Once again, on behalf of the organizing team, I thank you for your today's insightful session on building an international research profile, do's and don'ts, your roadmap and emphasis on quality and ethics, your own personal journey, and also your perspectives on AI as a research tool gave us was gave us valuable insights. So I thank you once again, sir. I hope we can have further collaborations together. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Of course, we can have collaborations. Can just drop me an email.
You are now muted.
We can talk. Thank you.
You are now unmuted.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you. Same
You
to
are now muted.